cop blocking story we reported a short time ago. A New Hampshire man was sentenced to almost 3 months behind bars for secretly recording police conversations. 30-year-old Adam Mueller posted the video on a blog connected to the website copblock.org. The claims to this site claims to hold police accountable. Here is where the story started. You can see a police officer slamming a teen to the ground. This looks like police brutality directed at a New Hampshire high school student. And while gathering more information on the alleged police brutality, Mueller recorded the police conversations, and for that, he was charged with 3 counts of wiretapping. Joining me now is Pete Eyre from copblock.org. Pete, welcome. So your reaction to the conviction?
Well, I was disappointed to see the way it went. Adamo made a strong case for himself. He stood on his principles. He didn't act in the wrong on the day on October 4th when he followed up on the incident that had happened at West High School. And in fact, he did something good. He tried to hold a public official accountable for hurting a student. But, you know, irregardless of what the verdict was on his case, he undoubtedly shared ideas about self-ownership and about personal responsibility and about CopBlock and some other good outlets with a lot of people. So there was a lot of good that came from this, and that will still continue to come from this.
Do you think that justice was served in this case?
Certainly not. I think, you know, if anybody who looks at this incident with for more than 5 minutes will realize that Adamo acted in the wrong and that his efforts should be held up, and that Darren Murphy and his colleagues, Michael Valentine, the DA who tried him, and then other colleagues of theirs who essentially remained silent and allowed for Adamo to be brought in front of to court was not a good use of resources, and it does not lead us in the direction that we should be wanting to go if we want to live in a free, prosperous society.
Now, ultimately, what do you think this will do? Do you think this will scare people away from recording police conversations and mamaking that public?
It's a good question, and honestly, I don't. I think you take the pulse of any average person today, and most everybody acknowledges the fact that you have the right to record a public official who, at the end of the day, claims to work for you. Their salary is paid for by money stolen from you, so you have every right to document their actions.
And tell us more about your website. I see your hat there advertising it, copblock.org. What do you hope to achieve through this website? What is the purpose of it?
Copblock.org is a decentralized website. We accept submissions from a lot of people around the states and around the world now that have had negative interactions with police individuals and also positive interactions. We don't hate police officers by any means. We're just trying to share ideas and ideas about self-ownership, that individuals at the end of the day are responsible for their actions no matter where they happen to work. So it's not that we want to, in a sense, get away. We want to create a lawless society, anything but. We believe that the goods and services provided by police could better be done through consensual interactions.
So would you say the website kind of serves to police the police?
Exactly. We definitely seek to police the police. We have a sister site, copreports.com, where people can share their interactions. We encourage people to document their interactions with police. We try to support each other when we're negatively impacted. And ultimately, my goal for the site is for it to not to exist. We live in a society where it's not needed, where people are responsible for their actions, whereas today sometimes folks with badges get away with things wrong for you and I.
Now, Mr. Mueller, here is just one example. What kinds of things have you captured and posted on your website? What kinds of instances of police brutality, or on the flip side, police doing, good things, have you been able to capture and make public on your website?
Well, unfortunately, this wasn't actually the first time Adamo's had trial for wiretapping. Last year, he and I also had a wiretapping trial in Massachusetts, in which case the jury in that instance said that we were in the right and that we hadn't wronged anybody's rights. But to look to a specific example of where CopBlock's been effective, I would say it would be, it's so numerous. I would just say the site has grown substantially since its founding over 2.5 years ago. There's now chapters or offshoots in dozens of cities across the states and elsewhere. And essentially we're encouraging people to stand up for what they know is right, to document their interactions and to support each other, and to not be led by fear, but be led by their conscience. And hopefully we get to, like I said, that scenario where every good or service is provided through consensual interactions, including the good of protection and security.
Now, how effective has the website been, copblock.org, in terms of holding police accountable for their actions?
It's a good question, and one I honestly can't answer with any objective metrics. What we try to do is share ideas that an individual, again, owns himself, and those ideas, they can have a deep impact on somebody today or maybe next year. But what I know from, for example, the most recent situation with the demo, based on the coverage that it got from RT and numerous other media sources, there's been hundreds of thousands of people that are now familiar with that situation, and a lot of them, the bulk of them, come down on the side that what a demo faced and what people similarly situated face is not something that they support, not something that they would voluntarily choose to pay for. So if anything, it only further erodes the claim legitimacy of these public officials.
And we have covered a lot of these instances where people have been punished, basically, for recording police officers. But for the most part, it is legal to do so, correct?
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting to see. I would point out the difference between law and legislation, law being natural, common, or God's law, and legislation being man-made and arbitrary. And you see this with filming police officers, for example, how it differs based on arbitrary political boundaries. You have, in one instance, folks that work at Oakland Police Department saying that we would never dream of taking somebody's recording device, and we actually encourage them to film, whereas other police departments proactively take people's property. They steal their property and in a sense, try to chill them from documenting their interactions, taking their cameras. So, but again, with the traditional gatekeepers of information losing their grip on the free flow of information, CopBlock and other alternative media sites are having a huge impact, and people around the world are seeing that it doesn't make sense. Coercion is not the way to operate your life by, and instead voluntary interactions are much better.
It seems like we're seeing a lot more of these videos coming out, police kind of cracking down on those that do record them and do try to expose what they're doing. Why do you think that is? Are police officers in these jurisdictions unaware of the law, or what do you think is going on?
It's a good question. I would honestly say it's a natural consequence of the perverse incentives that exist because of this institution of law enforcement. Today, it's said that certain people have an exclusive right to provide law enforcement. They have a legitimate right to initiate force. And anytime you allow somebody to have that right, then it just sets up a bad situation where first they say we're going to steal your money to protect your rights. There's no way those actors employed in that institution could ever do anything of the sort. And instead, that's why I would advocate that those goods and services such as protection and policing be provided consensually. I often have conversations with police officers, and if they're willing to have an open-minded conversation, then that to me says quite a bit. And I say, you probably work with some folks who are heavy-handed or maybe even corrupt, and they might acknowledge it. And I say, well, wouldn't you prefer to work in a situation where that wasn't the case? And undoubtedly they would. So how do you best get there? It's not to provide this one-size-fits-all top-down monopoly with more money, but to advocate for a better alternative.
Very interesting, Pete. Really appreciate you coming on the show. That was Pete Eyre from copblock.org.